Our first stop on this final leg of the journey to the cross is the Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus has come to this place of solitude out of a desperate need for the comfort and strength of his Father. In his own words to his disciples, Jesus describes his mental state this way: "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death." As Jesus contemplates the path of suffering that lies ahead of him, all of Jesus's humanness is on display. He is afraid and overwhelmed and discouraged. And he brings all of those things to God in prayer. "Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me." That image that he uses of the cup has a couple of levels of meaning. It means his fate. As Jesus contemplates what is ahead of him, he asks God, could you spare me this fate? Is there another way? But that image also gives us insight that Jesus understands the fullness of what he's entering into, because the image of the cup goes back to the Old Testament. When it talks about God's judgment being poured out on people who are deserving of it, the image is of those folks drinking from God's cup of wrath. And so Jesus understands that as he is about to go to the cross, the fullness of God's wrath and judgment that deserves to be poured out on humankind, he will be taking on himself instead. And Jesus is overwhelmed by this. This is such an authentic moment of prayer. Jesus is bringing all of himself, all of his thoughts and emotions to the Father. May this cup be taken from me. But Jesus' prayer doesn't stop there. His next word is nevertheless. Such a significant word that Jesus prays. Nevertheless, the fate of humankind turns on that word. In the presence of the Father, Jesus finds the strength to relinquish his desires for the sake of the purposes of God. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. Brothers and sisters, the most powerful thing that Jesus ever did, more powerful than any miracle or healing or teaching, the most powerful thing that Jesus ever did was to surrender. I'd like to invite all of us into that same space of surrender. For it's when we surrender to God and trust in his purposes and his plans and his timing, and we place our trust in him in those ways, that's when God really moves in our lives powerfully. And the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to invite you to take some strips of paper and write out one by one all of the things that weigh heavy on your heart. What are those circumstances that are making life hard right now? What do you want God to change? What do you want God to take away? What do you want God to give you that you lack right now? And then put those papers in a cup, one by one, as a form of prayer. And as you place them in the cup, that's your prayer, asking for God to move in these ways. And once the cup is filled with all of the strips of paper, all of your prayers, let's enter into the prayer of surrender. And so when you're ready, you'll hold the cup out and pray out, nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. As a prayer of surrender, saying, God, I trust you. I trust your plans, your timing, your purposes. Your will be done, not my will. And then after everyone in your household has had a chance to do that, I invite you to spend a few minutes listening to the song, Even If, as a way to rest in and take in the power of surrender in a deeper way.